There's no doubt that not only was Top Gun Maverick one of the biggest movies of 2022, but it was also a full cultural reset. The long-awaited sequel had been a very long time coming, and when it did drop, it didn't disappoint anyone. But did it also mean saying goodbye to Pete Mitchell forever? In today's video, we'll break down exactly why a third movie should be in the works soon, plus some secrets from the sequel. Starting off, why does a third movie need to happen? Even if you weren't around in the 80s to witness the insane hype of the original Top Gun, you definitely grew up hearing all about it.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. Is there something wrong?
Yes, ma'am. The data on the MiG is inaccurate.
How's that, Lieutenant?
Well, I just happened to see a MiG-28.
Wait.
Sorry, Goose.
It inspired generations and became an instant cult classic. The movie put all the nostalgia to good use, but also managed to update it with a bunch of up-and-coming actors, a perfect summer soundtrack, and some crazy visuals and cinematography. Plus, with the storyline, it really was the perfect way to end Maverick's story. But we still need a third one. No, we're not saying that just because fans want more, even though they really do. With the 30-something years it took between the first movie and the sequel, it's no wonder that old and young fans aren't done with the franchise. And when you have this kind of box office success, it makes sense to take advantage of it and make more. The sequel pretty much tied up all the loose threads in Maverick's life. He made things right with Goose's son and managed to get his happily ever after with the Admiral's daughter Penny. That means the third movie can't focus on Maverick again, but there are plenty of new characters we can follow. For a third movie, it makes sense that Maverick would take on a more mentor kind of role, the same way Iceman did in the sequel. But the important thing to note here is that it would focus on him adjusting to retired life and not getting to be in on all the action, the way he always wanted. Top Gun 3 could focus more on Rooster instead, now that his character's been established, and it might give a better ending to Maverick's character arc. What's more, the sequel gave us the perfect protagonist. The two Top Gun movies have focused mostly on Maverick's personal journey as a young, action-obsessed, reckless pilot to, well, an older, action-obsessed, reckless pilot. Except this time, he's leading a bunch who are just like him. In fact, they might just be better. We've seen this pattern in a lot of sequels. The hero of the first movie learns to step back and take on a mentor role as younger, more talented kids step into the hero part. Millions of fans noticed that Rooster and Hangman are mirror images of the playful rivalry between Maverick and Iceman from 1986, and the third movie could focus on the two of them. We saw in the sequel that both of them had crucial roles in the mission's success, and a third movie could see them building on that relationship more. And that's not all. Another set of main characters exist in Phoenix and Bob, who could definitely be Maverick and Goose 2.0. It was one of the most beloved bromances in film history, even if it ended in tragedy, so having a parallel with a happier ending could work great. There's not much of a chance Maverick will leave the story completely, but he's got some great replacements in the world of aviation. It's likely that we'll see him finally grow up a bit and move through the ranks of the Navy, all while training a new generation of elite fighter pilots. Top Gun isn't Top Gun without Tom Cruise, so he's probably going to stay a major character in a potential third film. Next up, here's what the sequel did for a future plot. One of the most iconic and memorable moments in Maverick was the scene with the F-14, showing that sometimes you have to make use of the old stuff, even when the world has moved on. That definitely had some huge meaning in the sequel, but we have to remember that there's way more modern tech in use now. The sequel did set up the concept of combat drones, which don't really need fighter pilots to man them anymore. Since the entire point of the franchise is the pilots, it could be interesting to see where job-stealing tech could lead the series, because dogfights with cool soundtracks aren't going to work forever. What's more, with the death of Iceman, we have the perfect driving force for Maverick's character. With the traumatic loss of his old friend in the sequel, Pete had to deal with a lot, but it could actually motivate him to do much better in the future. The two pilots were polar opposites. Maverick stayed a captain despite his talent, because he kept getting in trouble. Iceman rose through the ranks, since he stayed disciplined and ambitious the whole way. He also helped Maverick realize his own potential, which could drive him to get promoted and make his departed friend proud. And finally, like any good sequel, Maverick also set up the ideal villain. For a movie that puts so much emphasis on doing the right thing, even when the higher-ups aren't happy, the best villain is an authority figure, and we have that in the form of Ed Harris's Hammer. After Maverick pushed past Mach 10, it makes sense that Hammer would have a bone to pick with him. So who's going to call the shots on a third movie? We've talked enough about how perfect a third movie could be, but none of that matters unless someone gives it the green light. Fortunately, that person will be none other than Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell himself, Tom Cruise. The third movie definitely isn't coming anytime soon, but when it does, it's going to be Cruise's call entirely. That might not sound like amazing news to the people who waited almost 4 decades between movies, but it's the best thing for the franchise as a whole. The entire cast and crew made sure that the sequel took everything everything from the first movie and did it better. Everything was amped up to the max, and Cruise will only make a third movie if he can make it even bigger and better. That's definitely good news for every fan out there, since Maverick shocked everyone with how good it got. It's also super important for Cruise to stay on top of the project, since a lot of people noted that the sequel stayed true to the original. You can only do that if you have the old guys staying on, since they know best what the movie meant to people and how they can connect with their devoted fan base while grabbing a whole new generation of fans. The sequel managed to add to the story without taking away the magic and charm of the original. That's the only way a third movie should happen, and with Maverick himself leading it, we can rest easy knowing that if it ever does happen, it's going to happen the right way. Moving on, here's what Maverick told Hangman. There's been a lot of debate after the sequel dropped about who should be Maverick's true successor. Should it be Rooster, the son of his late best friend who had a pivotal role in the second movie, or should it actually be Hangman, the super ambitious, super talented fighter pilot who seems to have a lot more in common with Pete Mitchell? Whichever side of it you support, there's definitely a fun behind-the-scenes secret from the sequel, and it's all about the advice Cruise gave to Glenn Powell as he prepared for his role as Hangman. Jake Hangman Saracen was a quick favorite after the movie's release, probably because he reminded older fans of what they loved so much about Cruise's character in the 1986 film. But there's actually a surprising reason he reminds everyone so much of Maverick. He got some advice from the big guy himself. In a recent interview, Powell revealed his hesitation with playing a character like Hangman. Obviously, with that kind of ambition, you do end up coming off a little selfish. And Powell said there's always the whole thing of wanting to be liked on camera. He even compared it to becoming Draco Malfoy, who audiences hated for years for the way he treated Harry Potter. But Cruise helped him through that. He told him that he had to completely lean into his self-centered character as the only character who wasn't worried about how good he was. He told him the movie wouldn't work if he was apologetic at all, and clearly that advice ended up working great for him. And finally, who could resist another movie with success like this? When Top Gun Maverick was in the works a few years ago, before the pandemic delayed it, people were divided on how it would be received. A lot of them thought it was just another cash grab, capitalizing on the nostalgia of the original to get sales from the fans who watched it in their youth. But when the movie came out, it destroyed everyone's expectations, doing way better than anyone, even the cast and crew itself, could have predicted. Towards the end of 2022, it looked like it was going to lose its #1 spot, since another long-awaited sequel happened to drop just then, Avatar: The Way of Water. James Cameron's original Avatar movie shattered box office records, and when the sequel was announced, there was no doubt it was going to shatter them once again. Maverick had been comfortably holding the top spot for months, and for a second, it looked like it was going to lose it. But the naval aviation pilots won again, since Maverick's $1.49 billion at the box office narrowly beat out Avatar's $1.4 billion, cementing it as the highest-grossing film of the year. It didn't fare so well internationally, though, losing out to Avatar with around $190 million less in the international market. Maverick definitely had more time to rake in sales, what with its summer release, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the movie was historic. The National Board of Review named it the best film of the year, and nobody disagrees with that. And in the world of film, that just about spells out a third movie perfectly. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think there should be a third movie? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.